All right, we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another A Million or the Moon live stream. We have an extremely special guest with us here today. So thank you, Funny Jim, for coming on the channel, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing terrific. Are you able to put your screens side by side? There's a little button in StreamYard. There we go. I can see all of us.
There we go. Right on. Perfect.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
man. So how you doing?
Things are amazing. Yeah, there's always something going on inside the Hex community, the Pulse Chain community, PulseX. They're kind of like having three forks in a river. They sometimes there's a little bit more water on one of the splits, but yeah, everything's exciting. All these things are coming together really well. Really enjoy it.
100%, man. And thank you so much for coming on, because right now is a very exciting time. There's so much going on with Pulse Chain, the Hex side, the Hex Investment Trust, PulseX. Lots I want to talk to you about. But before we delve into that, just for the sake of my audience here, why don't you take maybe a minute here to tell us who you are and how'd you get into crypto?
The longer that you know me, or you look up my content on Twitter or on YouTube or Instagram, any of those kinds of platforms, it's the same all across those platforms. I'm Funding Jim. My name's not Jim. My name's Gary, but it's FUNDINGGYM. I can get into the origin story of how that name came around later. But just say that I started as a Northeast Texas farmer kid, joined the military when I was 17, went special forces for 5 years with the Marine Corps in Camp Pendleton, deployed to war, came back. I was a medical specialist, so I ran hyperbaric chambers, scuba diver, jumping out of planes, did all that kind of stuff with the military. Then my curiosity led me to be a little bit more of the clean medicine instead of the trauma first responder kind of medicine, which is MRI, CT, echocardiography, cath lab, anything to do with heart diagnostics. So a majority of my working career has been in cardiology, all the diagnostic tools of cardiology. In 2006, I moved to Silicon Valley. One of my medical contracts took me to Silicon Valley, working at a major hospital institution there. The building that was next to my building now is the Apple compound, the big spaceship, 20,000 employees. All of the population of my patient population is what you would call it. Before that was your accountant, your bus driver, your normal employment of a small city. So I worked in hospitals all around the world, but this was the first time that my population was pretty much entrepreneurs, startup people, engineers, people that had been concentrated because of their intellect to Silicon Valley to create things. So they had heart problems. I saw them for heart problems, but the conversations were different because it wasn't about, their fireman career. It was about, hey, they worked at Hewlett Packard in the garage, in the startup of these major corporations that we know now, tech sector. So I became interested after being there for a few years and working in medicine for a few years. I became interested to participate as an entrepreneur instead of as an employee. I was a well-paid employee, but I was still an employee. And so I decided to launch what's called a accelerator, fancy name, but basically it's a house that was 1 block away from Steve Jobs' house in Palo Alto, 2 blocks away from Larry Page house, founder of Google, 5 blocks away from Stanford, as far as you could walk to Stanford University, which is a hub of tech in the United States and development. And I hosted 15 to 20 people. I set up a bunch of bunk beds, which was like a dormitory of the property that I had. I set up a bunch of cubicles, and so they could work their programming and develop their ideas. I hosted for about 3 years, something like that, so that when someone first came to the property for housing or for workspace, find out what it is that they're there for. What are they lacking? What do they need? Do they need a developer? Oh, maybe I can network them and put them in touch with the developer that had the skill set that they were looking for. Did they need capital? Maybe I can put them in touch with people that are either seed or angel VC. Maybe they needed to polish their pitch and get their idea distilled enough to be easily digestible, that elevator pitch. So I hosted for several years while I was still working 2 different hospitals in the Bay Area in Silicon Valley. And I loved it. I was a workaholic. I put 60 to 80 hours a week into, both my day job and my weekend job, and then my, micro mayor kind of hosting kind of fulfillment of these young people, 22 to 30-year-olds that want to change the world, and they want to do it through building an app or making a box that you could talk to order stuff from Amazon, or whatever their idea was, their startup idea. That was my origin into like entrepreneurism. Um, I played that a little bit with real estate at the same time. Before I'd always like bought my own homes and maybe flipped them and sold those for either profit or rented out my own regular home. But I started doing more like real estate syndicate deals where you could bring people together and say, hey, here's what we're gonna do. One of my successes this way was this. On my YouTube channel, I'll talk about this as well. I had the idea to get together enough business credit through 8 of my friends to buy a 14-unit apartment building in what's called Silicon Beach, which is Venice Beach down in Los Angeles area. There's a Google campus there. Used to be called Muscle Beach. Instagram, I think, is based there. If not Snapchat, one of those two is based there. And I wanted to buy an apartment building, but I couldn't do it by myself. It was a 14 unit, and I think it was like $4 million, something like that. So I did a strategy. I talked to my friends and I says, hey, one, I'm going to help you build your business credit. And they didn't have business credit. They were just regular people. They had good personal credit, but they didn't have business credit. I said, okay, here's what I can do. I can get you all each individually to have a sole proprietorship. And then once you have a sole proprietorship, which is basically a free kind of entity that you can set up, then I will negotiate with banks on your behalf to get you business credit. And I know a lot of like the techniques and shortcuts and hacks and things like that about how to negotiate with banks on behalf of other people. So I did that as a test, as a pilot. And I raised, between 8 of my friends, we raised around $600,000 worth of business credit, individuals, each person put in like 50 or 60,000, but it was 0% APR. They didn't have any interest rate for 9 months because the introductory period, just like most marketing, they want you to get debt and then pay interest on it once you have the debt. So they give you a free or a low APR level usually. So I did that for 8 of my friends, and then pulled those monies together and then bought the property and refinanced it, packaged it, put new tenants in it. And the new tenants were only startup people. There were only people that wanted to launch an FBA, Amazon FBA business. They wanted to put a product into drop shipping. It was nothing to do with crypto whatsoever. It was only real estate, startup, Amazon FBA, drop shipping kinds of people that we're looking at. And we had that list long before we had ownership of the property. So we had planned ahead by getting a quick list of people that would move into a property like that. That was a live work environment, because we had one dedicated apartment that had 7 or 8 kinds of laser printers and photo booth stuff set up and things like that, so that they could create the content to launch their own products. So it's kind of like a centralized live work environment. Very, very cool. And that took, I guess, from start to sale of that as a business and as a real estate package, it took about a year, maybe a year and a half. But I made each of my friends around $200,000 from the beginning to the end. 8 people made $200,000. So that was my first like big thing to do with credit, business credit for other people. And what I didn't like was a lot of the startups that come to Silicon Valley. Most of them don't come from the United States. They don't come from a leveraged and a financed, and you're going to get a car payment, and you're going to, have a FICO score and a credit, approval to, buy a car or to get a apartment. Most of the people that I worked with were from Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Estonia, Brazil, South America, Central America, and their family either had sold a business, sold some property, whatever, to fund their 22-year-old to go off to America to make something of themselves. That's the pool of money they came with. They didn't come with wealth. They came with, bon voyage and hopefulness from their family supporting them to launch their dream, launch their idea. And what I didn't like was they were overpaying for an apartment because for their personal apartment or for their office space or for their raw materials and goods to convert into a finished product. They were overpaying, and they're significantly. And the reason they were overpaying was because they didn't have a FICO, they didn't have a business credit, they didn't have a LLC, they didn't have a C corporation. They had a good idea, they had work ethic, they had drive, probably even had super education in like programming of apps and things like that. So they knew code, a lot of them. But when 9 people apply for an apartment in the Bay Area as a place to live, and 9 of them have a credit report, it's a 720, and they work at Amazon or Apple, but 1 doesn't, and they have employment and they have down payment, but they have no credit history whatsoever, that guy loses. He doesn't get chosen, right? When it's a very competitive market for office space or to hire new employees, and your new employees don't have any trended data about you either, because you haven't launched a company, successfully exited, made money for everyone. You haven't done that. You haven't been an entrepreneur that's got a track record. You're just a noob, right? So I liked my paternal instinct. I'm older than a lot of my tenants, but I had that paternal instinct, a little bit more protective and a little bit more like guide. And I don't have kids of my own or anything like that. So I was more altruistic in that way. And it was very fulfilling. I enjoyed it a lot. That was from 2014 until 2017. Then one of my 2014 tenants, a Ukrainian, he was a savant when it came to like filmmaking and things like that. He's a very creative personality. And I remember he had been there in 2014 for about 4 or 5 months, like making his little documentary about startup culture and things like that. And he'd gone off to some other place or whatever for a couple of years. And then he reached out to me in 2017 and said, hey, are you still running that house, that startup, that accelerator? And I said, no, I just shut it down like a couple months ago. He says, well, I'm going to be in the area. If you want to go with me, I'm going to go to this the first blockchain event, like a big event, I guess, in Santa Monica, California, a couple 100 miles south. Do you want to go with me? And I was like, what's blockchain? What does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means. I haven't heard that word. He says, well, it's like I'm sure he didn't use the word DeFi. That's later on in the vocabulary. But I remember him saying something like, it's like Bitcoin. And I was like, well, what's Bitcoin? I don't know what Bitcoin is. Like, he's using terms I don't know.
Right.
And he said, well, just come learn about it. And this was I think in March of 17. And I was like, okay, I'll go down. And I started doing YouTube searches, looking for the keywords. I found a couple of people that were broadcasting, content, and some of it was just like trading speculation and things like that. But others were like, this is like the philosophy behind it and the romanticized, notion of money. Like, what is the purpose of money? What does it do? How does it control governments? How does it control others? How does it control yourself? What is the purpose of sound money versus whatever other kind of thing you want to call money? So I gravitated to some of that stuff. And that was my first exploration, was because of the startup world. Medicine led to me speculating in real estate. Real estate led to me speculating on some startup people that I was hosting. That later led to me participating in blockchain and learning more about it in 2017. And there's more history after that.
Man, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I've never heard you put it exactly that way. That you said so much here that's so interesting. So if I can maybe attempt to summarize, it seems to me like you're basically a much cooler, more intelligent version of TJ Miller from Silicon Valley. You know that show?
Yeah, I didn't have the bathrobe, and I know that he was always saying it's an accelerator because he's hosting like 4 roommates or whatever.
Yeah.
That show was so popular. Again, I was living in Silicon Valley when that show was going on. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, and so it was very popular. Everyone was like, "Man, that's exactly the way they are. That's exactly how it behaves." And yeah, there's all kinds of little pop-ups. I mean, I have a lot of friends that they ran their own versions of these startups,
Mm.
accelerators. One was called Startup Embassy, and Carlos, I think he's moved to Spain now. But it was nice. It was like, potlucks on Sundays and or paella and all these other kinds of things, and just like the social environment of a hostel. But the hostel tenants are, they're ambitious. Like they want to create something. They want to make something. And I liked that networking. I liked networking people together for productivity. Like it's fine to say, oh, my friend, meet my friend, and then you build your own social clique or your social circle that you align with or whatever. But I really kind of, I think about how does this puzzle piece of this friend standing in front of me match up well with this other puzzle piece. I liked that.
Man, yeah, that's super interesting there. And look, I want to give people another reason to like you and even be more interested in you, because I think you touched on a particular point that I want to hover on, that I think a lot of people don't appreciate, unless you've kind of gone through it, which is, folks, medics, especially if you're in the military, they're literally angels on earth. So whenever you see a medic, you got to buy him a beer, because whether you've been deployed or just on exercise, medics are literally the best people in the world, and
Thanks,
the people who, when the shit's the worst, a medic is basically might as well be an angel on earth. So man, that's awesome that you did that. Now, did you go to school for cardiology afterwards, or did you just were you able to get in that field strictly through your military experience?
Yeah, so I started 17 years old. I graduated from high school a little bit early as far as the age goes. I emancipated at 16, so I lived in my own apartment when I was 16. But I finished school, and I just want to kind of see what's on the other side of the horizon. So my interest wasn't, when I first came in the service, it was a logical way to look at what should I do for the 4 years that I plan to be in the service. And my practical side said, if I learn how to load bombs, if I learn how to do some specialty welding, if I learn how to be an electrician or something along those lines for aviation, I actually they tried to really push me toward nuclear, which was to run the reactors for the submarines or for the aircraft carriers, because you have to score really well in these specific niche of it's called the ASVAB, but basically they test you out and see if they want what they want you to deploy you to do. So they offered me all kinds of money to do that as a 17-year-old, right? And I thought that didn't make much sense to me, even though it would be like a mathematical kinds of problems to solve, or it'd be like, responsibility that way, because I only planned to be in the service for 4 years. And I thought that if I got that skill set of whatever that military specific kind of thing, then once I got out, what could I sell? Like I couldn't sell my skill set of, I don't know. I just thought of it differently. So I thought medicine, I chose medicine, not because I was such a goody two shoe, but because I've been around animals and biology, and I liked that element of science and tech. And so that was what was appealing to me. And the first part of my service was a lot of education. So like I said, I went to Navy dive school, hyperbaric school, where you recompress scuba divers. I went through a lot of, it's reconnaissance. So they train you in a lot of different things that aren't necessary for a corpsman or a medic. Like I went to explosive schools and things like that, just to understand them, I guess. It's pretty cool. But yeah, the cardiology element came in because of the hyperbaric chamber and the scuba stuff. You learn about the circulatory system a lot, because you're learning about embolisms and what causes them, and how to basically protect people from stroke and all these other kinds of things. And I guess that was my first trigger to say, oh, this is interesting. I like the circulation system. I like the heart systems. And while I got within the first 500 people deployed when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, I was within the first 500 people. We got on a C-130 from Camp Pendleton, California, and then flew, I don't know, 20 hours or something, just never landed. They did a mid-air refuel over the ocean or something, and landed in Jubail, Saudi Arabia. And so I was in the first Gulf War, but that was mostly like a sit, watch, and wait kind of war. It was declared a war, and there was conflict, and there was people that passed away, sadly, but it wasn't as gruesome as what's going on right now with Ukraine and Russia stuff, in my opinion. But while I was there, I had applied for a special school that the Navy offers about 10 people per year. And I don't know how many applicants they had, but out of the applicant pool, I was chosen. And they sent me to Balboa Hospital in San Diego, and I learned it was about 2 years of school to learn MRI, to learn primarily cardiac catheterization, which is called angiograms, and when they do balloons and things like that to open up blood vessels, that's what that is, cath lab. And then also echocardiography, which is basically sound, making images of the heart. That was just 2 specialties. And then all the other subsets I picked up on my own, or challenged different tests and took on more education.
Interesting, man. Now, look, so, you know, with there being such a wide variety of experiences in the military, looking back on your experience, is there any main takeaways, any lessons learned that you still carry with you today from your time in the military?
Delayed gratification. I mean, again, if you set a goal in your mind, you know, on a daily basis, if you put something in front of your face as far as what you want to accomplish, meaning, you know, you write out your goals of life. You know, here's the 5 things I want to accomplish. I've got, you know, 50 years ahead of me. I was 17, 18, and I'm contemplating what I'm going to do as a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, right?
That's very rare.
Right. So I think that, you know, the military, in a lot of ways, I'm not militant. I'm really not militant. I think I chose medicine because it was, you know, serve the dead and dying on a battlefield. That was my interest. I'm not militant, but I have deep respect for Marines, for the bravery, the boldness, for the adrenaline that is to overcome fear, you know, of their own death, right? So I have great respect for the military people I served with, and people that I meet later that I never served with, but they have that same kind of steel in their history. I like that a lot. But setting a goal and then figuring out the action steps necessary to actually accomplish it, right? I think that the military was really great about that. Like, you can start college, and when you start college, they may give you a curriculum, and they'll say you got to do 120 credits, and basically 40 of them are, you know, worthless and don't do anything for you. Maybe 80 credits teach you something. Maybe they teach you how to learn. I don't really know. I was always a see it once, do it once, teach it to other people kind of personality. I always liked the practical, you know, show me how to do it, let me do it, and observe me, and then I can start teaching others. I loved that about the military a lot. That was really the utility I got out of the service.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. And so that's it's a really interesting answer, because we can see how that's really played out through your life, all the different things you've done here, and how you got into crypto. Now, man, look, so that's all very interesting, and I want to ask you, like, so we kind of got a sense a little bit of who you are, how you started getting into crypto, but with there being, you know, Hex out there, one of the world's best appreciating assets, Pulse Chain, PulseX, the Hex Investment Trust, largest airdrop in the world. To start off here, getting more into the side of the crypto stuff here, what about all this ecosystem excites you the most?
Well, the long game. The long game, again, maybe I'm a little bit too Pollyanna. It's hard not to be cynical in today's cancel culture, in today's control system, oligarch world. It's really hard not to be cynical. I used to buy and store and save gold and silver. That was a big thing. Yeah. So it was seemed like a sound money thing. And that probably came from my farming culture as a kid. Like, all of my family, they're all farmers for, you know, generations and generations. And the ability to save through winter, to have seed for the planting of the crop in the spring, calving when it came to all the cattle kind of world. I mean, that was a normal, was to save, right? To save up. Even the idea to have kids maybe 100 years ago was probably because that was the cheapest labor. And that's why you saw a lot of people in agriculture, even today, in agriculture societies have a bunch of kids because it's cheap labor by comparison to the calories that they consume, right? They produce more than they consume.
Right.
And when you become more efficient and you create technologies like the plow or a tractor or fertilizer, right? Then you can still have kids, but those kids don't have to fight to earn calories. They don't have to be part of the homestead farm. They can actually go off to the big city and learn something else, because that's kind of the first savings. That's the first idea of money, probably, is like offspring. I don't know. And I think that my attraction to saving, conservatism, those sorts of things brought me to Bitcoin originally. I have to give props to Bitcoin, because in my naivety, when I first learned about Bitcoin, what I gravitated to was immutable, can't be changed, can't be seized, can't be, all those kinds of memes, right? About what makes it quote unquote valuable or competitive to gold. And, I've learned more obviously about these, and I've changed my opinion since. But that was what attracted me, was this idea of sound money, this idea of digital money that can be proven through, looking at reference of like the Etherscan or like the Bitcoin. You can look at the wallets and see what's actually happening number wise. So, I was attracted to that. And I still have the long game in my head to hope that controls of government and decisions by people can be made through a sounder money, a more sound money. So I trust math more than I trust men, is kind of my biggest interest. Because truthfully, you want to get rich, there's a million ways to get rich, dude. There's a million ways to become a millionaire on an app on your phone. There's a lot of ways to get rich. But this one seems like a noble cause. And that's what I'm really attracted to about Hex. I think Pulse Chain and PulseX are amazing. I think they're going to do fantastic ROI. I've definitely sacrificed. I think that they are needed in the marketplace for sure. They're fitting their product market fit. I love all the stuff about Pulse Chain and PulseX. But for me, the sound money concept really, really is anchored in Hex and in the immutable element of a token that sits on a blockchain. And built into that token are these staking reward mechanism, this social attraction about the idea that you can pay your future self with the participant, with the whole thing about how it's not a linear reward. It's actually based on participants in the system at the time, 6 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, 6 weeks ago, because your T shares are paying you out on a daily basis based on what's happening in the market on a daily basis, right? So it's a very interesting system, and I think it's the most honest system in crypto.
Man, so first off, I just want to say, Valiant Brand, thank you so much for that super chat, $33, man. Appreciate that. But I'd also want to say is, I think you do a very good job of explaining your story, and the answer you gave, that one of the things you look out for, and one of the things that excite you is that long term, right? And what can we do to improve the long term? And it's so funny that you found Hex, which is the cryptocurrency that is best optimized to capitalize on what the long term has to offer. So yeah, that's super interesting. So when exactly did you find Hex? So were you day one kind of guy, or were you late?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think
okay.
I was in the Telegram, like maybe a number 400 or something in the Telegram room.
Okay.
And I remember we just threw memes or pictures and memes around inside of the single Telegram room that Richard had set up, because there was Strape, and then it wasn't called Hex. Maybe it was called Bitcoin Hex at the time.
Okay, you're early, yeah.
Yeah, and it was before there was a logo. It was before there was I don't think it was just Hex. Maybe he was working on getting the rights to the .com. But it wasn't Hex. It wasn't publicly called Hex. It was only called Bitcoin Hex for a long time.
Right. And didn't he have what, like, this other cryptocurrency, this Weird name.
Yeah.
I can't even remember what it
It's
was.
fluid dynamics. It was like
Fluid
this
dynamics.
fluid dynamic, and it was like mathematically needed, and it was going to have a use case to it. But honestly, I didn't know. I mean, I've learned that since being around Richard and Hex and the Hexagons about this origin story of this coin based on fluid dynamics. But I didn't know about it. I didn't know about Richard. I knew about Richard in 2000. Hang on a second. Someone's trying to ring me. Let me turn off my WhatsApp. I learned about Richard in 2018, maybe, no, 2019, probably. And maybe in the very, very beginning of 2019. I can't remember exactly when, but I remember that Crypto Beatles is a friend of mine. And Crypto Beatles had told me that I should pay attention to Richard Hart.
Were
and
you?
then because of that, I learned more. I give a shout out almost every time I can to Serena Alonzi. So she's the first person that made content that I remember seeing about Hex and about staking and things like that.
Well, shout out to her. Thank you for giving us funding, Jim. Yeah, it's so funny how that works, man. You know, Serena, then you, and then people like you help people like me. And my hope is that I, hopefully help others. So it's it's a wonderful circle of growth. And that's, one of the primary reasons why I'm interested in crypto is for the ability for the little guy to truly be financially empowered. I mean, not so much more today, but when I first really started getting into crypto heavy 2 years ago, I mean, crypto was the first, true massive, not industry is the right word, but investment category in which the little guy could front run the big guy. And, now we have Grayscale, now we have, large guys in the space, but there are still niches in crypto in which you can still be early, in which the little guy, normal person, can go from not having a lot to, hopefully getting that financial freedom. And that's what we're trying to achieve on this channel. We're called aMillionortheMoon for a reason. I'll speak for myself here. I'm very much a normal person, not rich whatsoever, but I've put in literally all my money into these different sack phrases between PulseChain, PulseX. I used to be in maybe like 50 different altcoins at my peak, and I've consolidated to basically Hex, PulseChain, PulseX, and then some of these PulseChain sack phrases as well. So that's why I'm particularly interested, because I truly feel, and let me know what you think here, that this particular niche has an above average likelihood to give people financial freedom in the upcoming years, more so than the vast majority of other cryptos out there.
Yeah, I want to give a real kudo to you, because it takes a certain level of bravery to be out there and talk just to your friend circle, and then on top of that, to put yourself on the internet and locked for time, right? And then on a daily or weekly basis to come up with ideas and content to to support a community or educate or inform a community, right? In general, kudos to anybody that makes content, and I think that your thoughtfulness. And you have caught my attention because it's Richard Hart products. Obviously, I'm involved with Hex, and I care about the community and things like that. But outside of it, the thoughtfulness that goes into your content, I think, is there for sure, regardless of the product. If I wasn't in the thing that you're talking about, I still would really appreciate your thoughtfulness. And I know a lot of people that just throw out, top 5 gems, and this is what's the hype cycle right now, and they probably make crazy money. But at the end of the day, like, I still want a purpose-driven life. Like, me personally, I want, I can make money in a lot of different things. I don't have to be public. I came out of retirement for Hex, just to advocate and support Hex. But yeah, I think it's a noble cause to say, hey, I'm going to put in the work because I want to know about something, and then I'm willing to share what I learned. Like, this is what I actually learned about what's going on, the mechanisms of economics behind why this thing may become popular. You and K4K and others, I think that they have that good intent when they go research content and then they distribute it, what they learned, to others.
Well, man, look, I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you very much. And look, like, from our end as well, like, because we will make videos about other things that aren't just Richard Hart ecosystem projects.
Sure.
And a lot of that is because me and Messin internally, like we have these conversations all the time. How do we reach more people? Because the thing we saw about the Hex ecosystem is that it's very insulated. Unfortunately, a lot of the time people are just talking to themselves. And I managed to stumble upon you guys just because I just do research all the time. Half a year ago, whatever it might be. But it's 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 through talking about different things and different cryptocurrencies and making those top 5 videos that I think you can reach a different audience. And that's what we're trying to keep in mind. And I think that's what we can do with our channel specifically. And what I like to do is I'll make those top 5 videos. I'll do that, but I think I'll be like, hey, I think Hex and Pulse Chain and PulseX are probably among the best opportunities we've seen today. And also, I just gotta say,
Yeah, you gotta say it. You gotta say it.
Holy shit, man! Thank you so much.
No kidding.
When I saw it, I was like, "Oh my god, dude! This guy just gave $133.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Thank you so much." He's saying, "Can't wait to see your story and journey, aMillionortheMoon. Great work and much love, dude. Thank you so much." I gotta say, this guy as well, Valiant Brand. He's been super positive for a long time, not just on our channel, but with everyone. I mean, this guy's all about spreading love. And so that's amazing, man. I'm pretty sure you're younger than me too, which is awesome, man. That's great.
I think he's 22. He might be 22. I'm not sure what age he is.
I'm 23, so yeah, you're a little bit younger than me, man. So right on, bro. I'm glad you got in Hex.
Valiant has been one of the people that I remember very early in the Telegram. I remember very early when people were starting to make any kind of content before he started making his own content and his own hosting. And I remember he has always been a pillar of support. I really haven't heard, even as much as I love Hodl had one time that he really got pissed off at the founder of Nomics, and he really went off the deep end on that. I've never seen Valiant Brand say something harsh. I mean, much less offensive. He is a good guy. He's a very good personality. I really like Valiant.
Oh, okay. So yeah. Turns out Valiant's a little bit older than me, but
okay. All right.
But there we go. Regardless, man, super appreciate that. You're awesome. Yeah, no, Valiant's literally like just a force for positivity out here. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So okay. So then, are you into anything other than Hex? Anything other than Hex? Are you some secret Shiba whale?
No. If it's a Richard Hart, I mean, I've been pretty honest about this stuff. I've come on about different tokens that are going to be developed. And many of us, we went through this promise coin phase of 2017, blow off on the ICO. It didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I did get caught up in it, that I put money toward startups. In my mind, there were startups. And in my mind, the coin represented the startup of 2017. And then the truth inside of Silicon Valley startups is you have repercussions for not trying. Like if you get the money from a seed or a VC or whatever, there's still repercussions because you didn't develop something, you didn't make an honest effort with the money or the tranches of money that were put toward that cause. And whether your product succeeds or fails in the marketplace is a different thing. So you can have failures. 9 out of 10 times that I would speculate on a startup in Silicon Valley, it would go to zero and you would lose all your money, right? And then 1 out of 10 would be, you'd make 50%, more than what you lost on the other 9, right? You'd make a bit more, right? So it made it worthwhile. And every so often you'd hit, one that'd have a 50x or 100x or 1000x, right? On a startup, right? If you held through it. So in the bull of 17 and the ICO craze of 17, there's just not a lot of accountability. If someone had a website that they threw up that looked pretty, if someone fabricated a white paper, they could get $50 million. And then the concept from the speculator was, they're going to build me something amazing. I can't say it out loud, but I am going to profit from the work of others. Right? And that didn't make sense to me back then, but I still got caught in it. And my sound thoughtfulness was, let me make sure that it's a company that's based in the United States. Let me make sure that the people that are the founder or C-suite of this blockchain startup is known, and they have history, and their LinkedIn profile has depth, right? That's what I cared about in 17. And I found out you can still get wrecked. You can still get wrecked.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting because there's such an ever evolving set of factors that lead one to conclude whether something is of high quality or not, right? And the mark is always changing. There's always a different set of factors which are more and less important. And then you also don't want to be setting too high a standard of consideration on something in its super early stages, because then you might miss out on opportunity. So it's such a moving ball post as to what set of factors are the best to keep in mind when analyzing, the early stages of these different projects. And so in that effort, I want to ask you, like, have you participated in any of these pulse chain sacrifice phases, like liquid loans, IMD, Power City? Have you given any thought to those? Did you participate in those sac phases?
I'm supportive. Again, this is documented, fairly well documented. Every time that there's a new sacrifice and a new money raised for a new concept, even by people that are quote unquote known inside the community or they've been in Hex for a long time, I still recognize that they're not Richard Hart, and maybe that's my bias, and maybe I'm going to lose out on mad gains that other people get. What I loved about Hex was it was finished product. What I loved about Hex was that there was no fundraising. It was funded by Richard. What I loved about it was released into an ecosystem to live or die. Basically, a new animal was thrown into the jungle, and if it had enough fangs or camouflage or support and nurturing and able to fend for itself, then it would live. If it didn't, and the market didn't appreciate it, it would die. And that's really hard for me to get past. So I understand that the founder and the dev teams and Kyle and some of the other people that were known running all of these different simulations of what Hex might do, and then it did it. All this was kind of known inside of all the Telegram conversations that we had back in 2019, because it was simulated that this would happen. And certain derivations happened that we didn't expect and stuff like that, but mostly it's happened the way that Richard said it would. And now there's this need for the Pulse chain to exist, and there's this need for PulseX to exist to outcompete and outperform existing other blockchain and existing other DEXs, right? But those can't be finished products. Those can't be immutable, locked. This is all it's ever going to be. If the market appreciates it, it's going to live. It's not going to evolve, because Pulse chain will evolve and PulseX will probably evolve. And all the coins that launch on top of it probably will evolve, because they're not probably immutable. I do recognize that certain things like Liquid Loans has said that they're immutable because they're forking code that's immutable in other systems. I do recognize that there's great bravery and boldness to put people's faces on camera and talk about a product that they're developing and that they plan to launch and all the good things that may come from it. I appreciate that. I'm definitely not negging on products that launch on these two on PulseX or Pulse chain. Definitely not knocking it. Me personally, I don't need to speculate. Maybe I'm not hungry enough to speculate. I like to really fend and defend and educate more no coiners with my time than I do to speculate for my own gain and yield. So maybe I'm not the best person to ask that question.
No, I actually really appreciate that answer, because it lends perfectly into a question I wanted to ask you, which is I actually want to give you, I wanted to ask you about some advice about how to communicate about Hex. Because look, you mentioned before, you mentioned on your channel that you talk to many no coiners about onboarding into crypto, onboarding into Hex. And so on this channel, roughly 6 months ago, we started to make a hard turn, talking much more about Hex stuff, Richard ecosystem stuff, as I began to learn more and more about it. And so one of the things that I've had, not a hard time, but an evolution in trying to get across is I've been trying to get better at communicating the true value with Hex and why Hex is different. Because look, man, let me tell you, I'm very familiar with the ecosystem outside of Hex, and it's all the time. What are the new top coins of the month? What are these new top 5 cryptocurrencies? What's the new DeFi thing on Solana, Cardano? And people outside of the Hex community are so used to being shilled something new every month, every week. And so when you come to them with something that's above average high quality, I find it difficult to get across the point that this isn't just the new hot coin of the month. No, that there's something to this here that separates it from the rest of the community. That this is of higher quality. So I don't know. You may not have an answer to this, but any thoughts as to how to communicate the how Hex is of unique, high quality?
Passive income.
Mm.
To me, the phrase trustless interest, the phrase passive income, these represents it to me, because when it is so Pulse Chain is going to do well. It's going to do phenomenally well, and there will continually and evermore be another top 5 gem of the week launching on Pulse Chain, and there will forevermore be farming and pools, and PulseX will do phenomenally well because people will trade these things. When people first get involved with cryptocurrency, maybe they put their toe in with one particular product, whatever that product is, NFT, meme, my friend bought Doge, whatever it is, right? Then they're going to go through their own journey, and their journey is going to be either they're going to filter out because of their bias, or they're going to embrace things because of their bias, right? Humans are just going to do that, right? Individual journeys. And what I like about Hex is I don't have to think about that. I have a staking ladder. I've set the staking ladder. I know when it matures. I know that I need to be accountable to unstake it, to restake it, to make a conscious decision about that investment thesis every so often whenever a stake comes due, right? Whenever I have a liquidity event, which to me is whenever I sell real estate, sell a fancy car, whatever it is, sell a service, invent something new, whatever, then I know where I want to put it. I want to put it in Hex. I tend to take 80% of what that yield is and put it into Hex and set a new staking ladder and that sort of thing. Now, do I want the mental energy to go through 10 different people that have distilled other content like yourself? You may distill content for others and spoon feed a bit, right? What's going on? Here's what's happening. Here's what's next, right? I really don't choose to do that. I didn't do stock market. I didn't do commodity bond trading. I did real estate. Real estate was, I'm going to hunt for a while. I'm going to find this thing. I'm going to paint it, make it nice, furnish it. I'm going to find tenants. I'm going to make sure that they're paying the rent on time. I'm going to screen well. And I want them to basically be as close to passive income as I could, which is low maintenance property, low maintenance tenants, right? Cash flow. That was my thought. And so that to me is like farming. I'm more of a farmer. My friend circle represents this. My friend circle, I'm more of a farming personality. I like to set the seed, grow the relationship over time. That's the same thing for me in investing, for me personally. I don't need the hot action. I don't need the adrenaline hit of trading. I really don't. So I don't really want it to be part of my personal life, my personal journey as far as an investment thesis. That's why I'm not in the stock market. I don't do the stock market stuff. And the same thing with crypto to me is, people are still going to do what people do. And if it's helpful to you and it's making your relationships with your loved one, with your family, if it's giving you fulfillment, if you feel it morally is, and not just morally, if you feel like it's the best use of your abilities to trade, knock yourself out, man. Somebody's going to do it. Might as well be you. But I don't think that it's the net best thing that most people can do with their time. I think that they can be productive. I think they can create a service. I think they can go get used furniture from the resale shop and learn how to restore it and put it on eBay. There's just better things to do with your time. I don't know. That's me. But yeah, I think it's worthwhile to onboard people because they like a meme picture, so that later they can drink from the same thought process about a sense of purpose of their life. Do you feel more purposeful? Do you feel like you delivered value to society because you traded a picture of a monkey? Like that made your day, that made you fulfilled, right? You gave purpose to your kids or something. I don't know.
Right, but taking a look at Hex, which is code-wise immutable, multiple front ends. true DeFi, you're saying that's what gives you.
Yeah, it's finished. The product itself can never be changed. It's so much can't be changed that Richard had to make another blockchain to host it on because the gas fees that he can't control based on Ethereum needed to be addressed. So he couldn't even change the code of Hex to optimize it better or make it fit better some narrative to make it tradable. Because, think about it, once it became popular, he probably could make a different Hex that had different gas costs or something like that. He probably could have. I mean, I don't know, maybe not. But he didn't alter the vehicle because the road changed. He made another road. Like he's like, the vehicle is perfect as it's designed. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's giving trustless interest to people that participate in the system, that go through the staking and they are, even the inflation model, 3.69% inflation. Sure, that's what happens each year, but it's only awarded to stakers, and the average length of all those stakes is 6.37 years away. So it's even deferring inflation into the future.
Right.
Like nothing does that.
Right. And the yearly utilized inflation from I remember one of Wales chart, Wales only charts when we brought them on, is only I think like 1.6%, 1.69%. So the yearly realized inflation is extremely low. And look, man, I feel like there's many principles within the Hex community that maybe I was about to say that you guys take for granted, but I don't think you guys do, because they talk about them all the time, that people don't appreciate enough outside of the Hex community. The fact that the Hex code is immutable, the fact that there's multiple front ends, that does not exist in a great deal of so-called DeFi out there. And that's truly, I think, part of what separates Hex from the pack, is that if you look at any other DeFi product out there, and believe me, man, I spent the last 2 years looking at, I don't know how many dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different ones, nothing compared to Hex, to the community, to the tokenomics, to the values it holds dear. And the fact that nobody else has figured it out yet, the fact that I think some of the marketing of how Hex was marketed in the beginning got in its way a little bit, and people who didn't do a lot of research into it saw it as a scam, I think is such an underlying strength that excites the trader in me, because there exists a dichotomy there that people don't really appreciate. And whenever there's an extreme dichotomy between extreme high quality and lack of understanding, well, what you get there is extreme opportunity. And so that's what really excites me about Hex, is the fact that not only is this thing of intrinsic high quality, but everyone has ignored it, and it's done a 10,000x while being wildly ignored. And while it's being wildly ignored, people like you are putting in a lot of time and effort into doing some very interesting things, such as building out the Hex Investment Trust. So can you please take a moment to describe to us what is exactly the Hex Investment Trust, and what's kind of the state of the progress? Because I think this is something very interesting that people should keep in mind in days like this where Hex is down a little bit.
Yeah. So the Hex Investment Trust is very similar to the Grayscale Trust. If people understand what a trust even means, trust is an entity, and the entity can have certain elements built into how it operates. So the operating structure of it. This entity will only buy Hex, and it can't sell it. It will have yield, and the yield will be shown on metrics, but it's actually not really made. I'm being careful about how I say things, because it's actually better to go to the website to speak with Blake. Blake is a CPA that goes through all the nuts and bolts based on your own local jurisdiction, based on your local, what country you're in, and things like that, about whether or not you can participate. So I can't really get into the bolts of it. But what I will say is it's a Hex sink, meaning that it only can take in Hex, but it can't release Hex. And in trade for it buying Hex off of the marketplace, it issues out shares. And those shares are something that 401k, hedge funds, pension funds, they can participate, because by law, they can't participate by directly buying cryptocurrencies. They can't buy your Hex bags, but they can buy shares in a trust, and the trust can buy Hex bags. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's a mechanism. I forget how many billions of dollars worth of crypto that the the Grayscale Trust holds. It might be around 50 billion, something like that, assets under management. And it's comprised of Bitcoin, Ethereum, some other alts inside of that trust. But it only can purchase and it can't sell. And that narrative or that explainer helps pension funds and fiduciary responsible people manage the funds of others that do want to participate in cryptocurrency, but they have a retirement fund or they have, like I said, a 401k or something like that. They say, hey, I want to be self-directed. I want to take money out of my retirement planning and I want to put it into this HEX product. It's just easier for them if they participate through shares of trust.
Right. So basically remove some of the red tape for legacy to be able to participate in HEX. Right.
Trillions of dollars can go into trusts.
Hey man, don't be telling people this. I'm still trying to accumulate some more. Things hush hush here. Okay,
Right,
but so does the Hex Investment Trust stake HEX, or does it just hold liquid?
Yeah, it has an ROI performance. I'm not sure if it's laddered or if it's all 555'd, but yes, it does stake as far as I understand.
And so if a stake ends, you don't sell any of the staking rewards. There's no HEX ever sold on chain. Is that correct? Even after stake ends, at no point?
The legal structure, again, from my understanding, I'm not the in-depth person that I can be on a stream.
Sure,
about.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that it only purchases. I don't think it can sell. I think that it has yield, and that yield is pegged, or not pegged, but it's referenced to the market price. So if the Oracle is matcha XYZ, here's what HEX is selling for today, that translates into the number of HEX that's sequestered by the trust itself. So it will have yield, it won't be staked, but it will just increase how many HEX it's holding inside of that trust. And then that basically is part of the marketing tool and part of the yield thought on buying a share of the trust. So you're buying and selling paper, just like people say paper Bitcoin. You're buying and selling paper HEX because it's shares that are being bought and sold versus the underlying asset itself, which is HEX inside of the trust, owned by the trust. And because that number of HEX increases, the number of them, because it has a yield built into the contract of HEX, then that is referenced to the fair market value, which is Matcha, Uniswap, whatever aggregator, 1inch, saying here's the price of a HEX, here's how many HEX are in the trust, here's the value of the trust when you do a market cap kind of calculation. Therefore, the shares are undervalued or overvalued, or they're on a discount or they're on a premium. That's my understanding of it.
Interesting. Okay. Any consideration towards that? I've heard some rumblings, but I'm not sure if you could speak more to this as to whether or not there's any plans to perhaps doing something similar with Pulse Chain and PulseX in the future.
So from what I understand is this is a model, and because HEX is a finished product and there's not a lot other than the code of yield, over time, market participants, here's what the T-shares they're paying, how many HEX are being paid out per T-share per day. That kind of thing can be known. It can be constantly updated on website. And so the shareholders of the trust can see what their performance is doing, and they can make their decisions as they go. I'm not sure that Pulse Chain and PulseX are as easy to go through the SEC required reviews. Like HEX has already passed those reviews. HEX Investment Trust is already in private placement. We are waiting for enough financial data to be seen to go public. So it's not public yet, but it's in private placement. And private placement has different rules set. To go public, we have to have financials and we have a threshold. But what I'm saying is on Pulse Chain and PulseX, it's more of a legal fight, just like how you would say that Bitcoin passed the SEC because they said that it didn't have once it was a network, it didn't have an ICO, I guess. It had an executable file and people just started trading it, but it didn't have a fundraise. I think that Ethereum got grandfathered into that that status to say that it's now a robust network, and even though it was an ICO. Yeah, I don't want to get into the weeds too deep, but
Sure.
what I understand is that this is a template, and if the template applies toward Hex, we may deploy it for other products, and it may be Pulse Chain, it may be PulseX. It'll depend on the legal fight that we would have to go through, because the same people that formed the Grayscale Trust are the same people that we hired, that we work with. It's the exact same people.
Now, I don't know how much you could speak to this, but maybe just in general, do you find that some of this infrastructure being built out around Hex runs into its greatest obstacles? Is the greatest obstacles either regulatory entities, or law? And number two, does that distinction make sense? Where is it like a regulatory body that's perhaps putting up a piece of red tape, or is it like a literal law that's more so the problem, or is that even an issue you've had any interaction with?
No, no. I think that we have to comply with regulatory authorities, because they are the ones that are the rule keepers of the marketplace we are trying to entice into participating in crypto. So, I don't know if it's a 401k, but there's like pension plans. Like if you work for the fire department and you work for 30 years, they have mandates by law about what they can and cannot buy as a pension fund.
Right.
And some of those even have requirements to have a yield. And the yield might be, you can't buy it if it doesn't guarantee you 7% APR annual year yield, right? So that fiduciary responsible person can't buy certain things because they're too speculative, they're too unknown, they haven't been tested over time and so forth. They don't want to be the first mover, right? Even they may by law be restricted from being the first mover. But a trust is more familiar ground for these market buyers.
Right. Okay. And the reason why I try to bring up that question that kind of way, because it's something I would like to contribute, especially when I'm in a financial place to do so, is look, especially in the United States, you can do a great deal through lobbying efforts and in super PACs and that kind of thing, and it is surprisingly cheap to buy politicians in the United States. I've personally been following American politics all my life, and I'm telling you, 20 grand in some primary race or some Senate race, it can do a lot. There can be laws changed, and so if you ever knock on the door of Robert Kiyosaki or someone else, be like, hey, we got to start buying these politicians. We got to start lobbying more. So that's something I definitely.
Well, every party in power, again, they know that politicians, they actually create the bill. They'll actually write the bill, and then the politician will almost just like
lobbyists write the bill,
sign it off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you saw this play out. You see this with everything that's innovative. If it's so like the when horse and buggy was coming around, was going to die out because of the automobile. There's all kinds of laws about what you can do with an automobile. There's the whole history of all this kind of stuff over time. Into a tangent.
Yeah. But so man, look, I wanted to ask you as well, because look, Pulse Chain, PulseX sacrifice phase is over. From what I've heard from you, you seem kind of open-minded as to possibly diversifying to that front, given the track record of Richard. For people who didn't get into those sacrifice phases or who are looking to accumulate more, there's multiple ways I could ask this question, but I'm going to ask it this way. What would you prioritize accumulating first, Pulse Chain or PulseX, and why? When she goes live.
I'm so biased. I think I watch too much of K4K's content. I'm so biased because of the buy and burn mechanism. I'm biased because this hype cycle in the past 18 months over the farming culture, farming things and pools, and people like to see the number go up, and even if the number go up is on a platform of PulseX, and they see INC and PRT and this is what I'm yielding and things like that. That's very compelling for a lot of market participants. And I like the single side. I even like what K4K said the other day. He said, if you hate PulseX, you're still buying PulseX. If you hate it and you're participating on the PulseX platform, some percentage of your purchasing power of the thing you do like is buying PulseX.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know, and I understand the narrative of L1 as well about, this is an Ethereum competitor, and, maybe because of the cost or the dilution or whatever you want to say, the free copy, and the markets participants may move over, some percentage of them may move over to the network, and they all need PLS in order to do anything on the platform. I understand that narrative too. So I am sacrificed in both. But I will say that I am 10 times bigger holder in PulseX than I am in Pulse Chain. And it is because of the buy and burn that I cared so much. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And it is because of the narratives that K4K has put out there luckily after my sacrifice element. So I cared more about the buy and burn. I cared more about the performance of a DEX that actually had this liquidity, on the system of Pulse Chain. I like the product of PulseX myself the best, and I think that I still will see some volatility. I think we'll all see volatility, but I see volatility because a lot of people participated in PulseX that really do want to get Pulse Chain, and that narrative fits fine as well. So I'm fine with the volatility that I think will happen no matter what, as people shift around before there's a dollar bridge. And then once there's a dollar bridge, then there'll be more charts that say, here's what's happening on this chain. And I think actually the economic energy is going to slosh around into Hex the same sort of way. We don't need to have, again, I would love to have billions of people own Hex. That would be amazing. But we don't need billions of people. We don't need millions of people to stake Hex. What's interesting is if you look at the people that sacrificed and you assume that the Hexicans were the only people that put in Hex and they didn't put in Ethereum, they probably did too. They didn't put in Bitcoin, they probably did too, right? So just because you see Bitcoin and you see Ethereum doesn't mean that wasn't a Hexican that put that money in, right? They probably put Hex as well, or maybe they held on to Hex and they put Ethereum in instead. Who knows, right? Those people that are big, especially in Pulse Chain and PulseX, what do you think that they're in love with, right? What do you think that when they have yield and selling the PRT token or selling the INC token, or they already have pretty big bag in Pulse Chain or PulseX, where do you think that they want to long-term store their value?
Hex. Right.
That's the mechanism for me. That's my personal preference, because it's an immutable code to me. It's a sound money concept to me. And I don't have to watch it the same way. And I can actually turn off the information feed, on a daily and a weekly and a monthly basis. This does get tiring. We've been doing this for years, right? And so the idea was like, set it and forget it. And here 3 years later, I haven't been forgetting it for very long.
You haven't been setting to forget it at all. Yeah.
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 So I do like the long-term narrative. I do like the every so often, I do like not having access to my keys or my code or anything like that. I have all the legal structures for all that stuff. And it allows me to wander around.
Yeah. Like, first of all, vast majority of people shouldn't be trading. People argue you shouldn't trade at all. Vast majority of people who do trade lose. People, I would say the vast majority, because for someone who's myself used to trade much more actively, and ever since I sacked all my money to Richard Hire, I don't trade at all because I have no money left. But point is, people are much more temperamentally set up to be successful. I just set it and forget it long-term investing, which is exactly what Hex is optimized to do. And so, but before we leave the Pulse Chain, PulseX point, I wanted to get your opinion on this, because a lot of people are thinking about swapping PulseX for Pulse Chain when this goes live. And there's some interesting considerations here. Do you think, I have an answer on this, but I want to ask you, do you think it makes sense to swap some PulseX for Pulse Chain if you went much more heavy into PulseX in the SAC phase when it comes out?
Not financial advice. My personal
We want financial advice.
my personal love is this, right? So I
Right.
love this, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So my personal love is if I'm going to trade anything, which I really don't think I'm going to trade anything. I don't think I'm moving anything, even in the 26-hour or 2-day or whatever window. I'm fine with what I did. I made the decision. It's like saying I made the decision to go to school, or I made the decision to join the military, I made the decision to marry this person. I mean, like I'm happy with where I'm at. I don't really want to trade, and I don't think I would trade. The only thing I would pay attention to is for me is going to be, I do like the single pool PRT narrative. I do wonder what the PRT is going to be used for and who's going to buy it, right? Versus who's going to sell it. I'm curious about that. I'm curious about the INC. How is that going to be play out as far as the ecosystem? Because if we're going to invite a lot of new participants, or even ones that have got priced out of Ethereum to participate on Pulse Chain instead, there's going to be an incentive that they want to put their product or their idea in front of people that are on Pulse Chain already, or their whales, or whatever, right? They're going to do their marketing. So I'm curious of what INC and PRT will do, and from that yield. But if that yield doesn't have, I mean, that yield for me is just going to go into Hex. That's all I really care about. I'm probably too biased from the experience and the positivity, and yeah, I like the finished code element of Hex. That's my love.
Right. Okay. So if we can maybe bring things back to Hex here for a moment, I think
Sure.
it would be interesting, and I want to get your point of views. If we can maybe review what the last 6 months of Hex has looked like, and how we've gone from what was it, 55 cents to about 10 cents here. If we kind of can talk out loud here about some of the factors that led to this downtrend and how some of those factors may be changing, I think that might be an interesting conversation, because what have we really seen over the last 6 months? We saw a lot of SAC phases. We saw people get their first 10,000 X, and of course, there's going to be people who sell, and we're seeing a bit of redistribution here. But what are we also seeing? We're seeing progress on the Hex Investment Trust. We're seeing progress on Pulse Chain coming out, which is going to bring in, I don't know, 100 times more users into this ecosystem, 10% of which is probably going to get into Hex. At what point do sellers get exhausted here? I mean, in my opinion, man, with a lot of these SAC phases pretty much being over, with Pulse Chain around the corner, I think a lot of the factors that have led to this downtrend are starting to alleviate. And I want to get your opinion on kind of this last 6 months of price action and how things could be changing.
Yeah. Well, there's buying pressure or there's selling pressure. And I think that the past few months of Hex we've gone from a community of 35,000 or whatever it was in Telegram before Pulse Chain and PulseX existed, 30,000, 35,000, something like that. We went from maybe 10 to 20, maybe pretty frequent YouTubers talking about a single product, to now we talk about many products, and we talk about the things that are launching on those products, their own sacrifice phases and so forth. If you just looked at the Richard Hart products, it's like $2 billion. If you said, well, they already held Hex, maybe it's 1 billion, because a lot of those sacrifices were Hex that took that supply off of that market and put it into other hands, right? So if you say that would have been buying pressure, maybe it would have been buying pressure on an NFT. Maybe it would have been buying pressure in a different system altogether, nothing to do with buying Hex. So it might have gone somewhere, it would have gone somewhere else. But instead, that money went into Pulse Chain and PulseX sacrifices and Mintra and liquid loans and whatever else is coming out, right? So I think that some of the appetite for the Hex product has been diluted because influencers aren't just talking about one product. People aren't just buying one product. Richard isn't talking about one product. He's talking about a whole system. Now we're going to probably, not before too long, have maybe a year will go by, who knows, If MetaMask gives us some kind of problem, maybe it'll be sooner. But we're probably going to have a different wallet kind of system before too long, right? So some of this, like, I think it's just growing pains about the market. It's not that I don't maybe I haven't done enough chain analysis to say it's been selling down like crazy. What I've been seeing is appetite, buying pressure, interest, instead of going toward one product and staking it and getting out of the trading game as the narrative has been progressing. It has been, here's a necessary thing to do, which is a new blockchain. We're going to fork Ethereum layer one. We're going to change the consensus. We're going to launch a whole new ecosystem on top of that, including a DEX, including other products that launch from other founders, right? I think it's just kind of exhausted the buying part of Hex versus the sell down of Hex at this time. But when we do have these yields and we do have this 10x the size of the community because of the new blockchain and the new DEX, then to me, a lot of those yields, because they are from hexagons, a lot of the participants have been hexagons in the sacrifices. I think that a lot of those yields can go into Hex on Pulse Chain. And that price, what is that price? Yes, you're going to get a copy, but what is the price of the new market buy? Which one goes up? Is it both go up? Are they locked in parity with each other? Is one that goes up because there's onboarding cost of next to zero, right? I will be teaching people about Hex, but I probably will be onboarding them into the cheapest system that they can frequently buy Hex and the more familiar system of Pulse Chain because it's similar to Ethereum's system. So long way around it. Me personally, I will be buying Hex. Me personally, I'm going to be talking mostly about Hex with the people that I talk with, because to them, a 7% cap rate on their money is amazing return. 7 to 10% per year. Holy shit. Real estate's doing amazing. They've had boomer years, if you want to talk about equity, because of the hyper printing of the dollar, but maybe they've had 10 to 15% price appreciation in equity. And all that means is it just gives you more permission to borrow more money against that collateral. That's all it really means. Yeah, I like the yield element. I like the narrative of Hex most.
Right. And okay, now this is something I'm very much so interested in talking to you about, because I think we're both somewhat familiar with the narrative in the use case behind Hex. But if we can take a review, especially from your point of view, who've been into Hex for a while, if we can take a review of how Hex was spoken about, marketed since its existence, and if we can maybe talk about points to improve and points to sustain, specifically in regards to how Hex was communicated and marketed in the early days, what lessons and takeaways and if anything to improve, can we learn from how Hex was marketed and communicated moving forward, in both how we communicate about Hex moving forward, but also Pulse Chain and PulseX? Like, do you regret some of the ways Hex was communicated about early on? What is your point of view on that?
I think that we felt painted into a corner, and then we kind of lashed out a bit more than we should have as a whole. I think that a lot of the first year or two was a lot of contention between and honestly a lot of us yelling the value of the system that we're in to people that don't want to hear it. Like, they don't want to hear it. Like you heard today, if you paid attention to Richard talking with the Bitcoin people today, they just don't want to hear it. Like they actually completely ignore facts about the product, and even say things that were so silly, like I don't care about the price. Yeah, the guy says I don't care about the price. I don't know who pushed the price. How do you call yourself a market participant when you do lock up the product? I guess he locked up his product for like 10 years or something of Bitcoin, and he doesn't access it. The guy, Richard, did the stream today with the Bitcoin people. Yeah, did you pay attention to it?
Yeah. But I don't know about what mechanism you could lock up Bitcoin.
You can do it. They can do a time lock on it built into the. You can. Bitcoin has the ability to lock it. You can lock it up for however long you want to. You just don't have yield.
Really?
You can do a time lock.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. If you keep it from yourself.
Interesting. Like and subscribe to Funding Gym. This guy's a wealth of knowledge. I did
No,
not know.
it's Richard teaches all this stuff. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So yeah. So man, I learned a lot today. I learned that price doesn't matter.
That I don't care about price. I just want to lock up this thing so that nobody else can get it because it's going to change the world in the future. Like the guy was going on these different weird utopian kinds of concepts with nothing to do with money or price, even though they wanted to talk about it being money.
Yeah. It reminds me of the kind of intellect that Peter McCormack had to offer when it comes to talking about Hex. And look, man, that kind of interview that Richard had today talking to those Bitcoin people got me excited, because what I realized was that, oh, this is the opposition. This is who we're arguing against. I'm like, it's people like Peter McCormack. It's Peter McCormack. People like these Bitcoin guys. It's people who don't care about learning about what Hex has to offer and the improvements and the optimization on the gaps that legacy cryptos have. That's it makes me realize, man, that there's this dichotomy. And that's what I want to try and get better at communicating, hopefully, because I see that there's a little bit of an insulation in the Hex community, and I see how there's an insulation outside of the Hex community, because nobody talks about Hex. It's not listed on the major coin ranking sites, but if it weren't for that gatekeeping, it should be very more well known. And because there's this these bubbles that shouldn't be there forever, exists extreme opportunity, and that really excites me, man, for the future of what's possible here in terms of ROI. So yeah, and I think Pulse Chain is going to be the thing that starts knocking down some of those walls. Hopefully,
it's interesting that the Bitcoin people would not talk today, even though it wasn't brought up as a topic, about ranking. When you're sitting at the top of a ranking site, it's very easy to say, "Oh, they've got it right." But what if CoinMarketCap, just for a fucking joke, put Bitcoin on the third page? I mean, for a couple of years,
right?
Like, don't you think the Bitcoin people would say that's not truth, that's not right, it's provable on the blockchain that that's not correct?
Yeah.
Like, don't you think that they would say that?
Yeah, but see, your problem is
decentralized proof of value. What?
No, but your issue is that you're trying to talk about reality and what's rational, and that's kind of your problem is your focus on that. You're hovering too much on that. So it's about feelings and what you feel. Yeah. So look, me and Meston got into this a bunch about a couple months ago into how to rank Hex, because there is a bit of an open question as to what is and isn't supply. I mean, do you consider the stake supply? What about the OA? I don't know. I feel like it's going to lead into the nomics discussion. I don't know how much you want to touch on that, but point is that like at least they put in an effort to attempt to label and have a standard for what is market cap and isn't. I mean, CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap, they're just pretending like they can't figure out a means to derive market cap.
I don't know. You can't say that it's right in one case and not in the other. Like, if you have something that's called the Consumer Price Index, right? And you say this is what the cost of something was 10 years ago, and here's what the inflation. You're talking about inflation in fiat, right? And what they do is they say you should have a cost of living increase of 3% because inflation's only 3% more than it was last year, and therefore, steaks are only going to be 3% more, television's only going to be 3% more. Diapers for your kids only 3% more. We know that's not true. You can go to the grocery store month after month and prove that that's not true. But then they make the numbers. They change the numbers around. They change the products in the basket so that you still have $100 basket. It's really weird. And so if you're going to say, here's the formula for CoinMarketCap, here's how you figure it out. Here's the supply. Here's the current price it just traded at. Easy math, right? How is that so difficult? It's not, right? And all of us have said CoinMarketCap is a bullshit number anyway. It doesn't really matter. If all that's available to be bought of Apple stock is 100 shares, It doesn't matter if Steve Jobs' fucking trust has the rest. It doesn't matter because that's not available, right? If you say, the diamond on your girlfriend's ring, what's the value of it? Well, oh yeah, but you're not taking into account all the billions and billions of diamonds still inside of volcanoes.
Right. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
The stupid concept. So if you have a calculatable known amount of a coin and you have a price that it was paid for, and you are going to publish something on a website called CoinMarketCap, just publish that number. Well,
right.
They're just upset that it got gamed when everybody's been gaming it for years.
Right. And the best part is, like, how long can they truly keep this up for? I mean, I believe CoinMarketCap is being sued.
Yeah. By Hex.
I mean, right. Yeah. And you can only gatekeep the truth for so long, especially when money is incentivized to go where money is best treated. And I believe Hex is one of the best places in all of DeFi where money is the best treated. And so, like, when you see this gatekeeping, I just see it as opportunity. Like, it's so exciting because, like, oh, it's great because is this going to be the case 5 years from now? Is this going to be the case 10 years from now, 20 years? I don't know how long it'll take, but eventually, because money goes where it's best treated, money will figure this out. And you just putting up the charade just gives early people greater opportunity to accumulate before people figure this out. It's ultimately tragic that people aren't being exposed to Hex because, again, this is a massive dichotomy between a lot of how Hex is considered and the actual intrinsic value. And as soon as people figure that out, as soon as this thing stops being gatekept, I mean, I forgot I heard this on some stream, but if you don't like Hex now, someone said, I forget who, if you don't like Hex now, you're gonna love it at $100. Yeah. And that's the case. I cannot wait to see BitBoy Crypto shilling Hex when it's at $100, when it's just beyond embarrassing to keep ignoring it. And Pulse Chain outperformed everything in his portfolio. At a certain point, it'll just get too embarrassing to ignore. And there'll just be our exit liquidity at that point for interest, at least on my end. So,
I mean, well, the big thing is how many people know about a thing versus how many people will know about a thing. So if you're talking about the community is growing, or they're being louder, or they're getting the message in front of new eyes, or, I don't really like the battle between crypto people to try and convert one religion to another religion. I don't think that you do very well. I think that if you're going to spread a message, spread it to people that have never heard of religion. Of crypto, right? So I like the no coiner approach. I like the people that are already rich because they're already entrepreneurial and they've already been driven enough, and they already have an investment thesis that was either in themselves or their own company or their speculation that paid out in the past. Like, I like those kinds of pure personalities, and we have them in spades. We have so many inside of Hex, so many people that are entrepreneurial and been driven for a long time, and they were successful before crypto. Our founders been successful before crypto. I really can't say that about the founders of any other thing. I don't know enough about Satoshi's history before. I don't know enough about Vitalik when he was 17 or 18, making all this kind of code stuff and writing for the Bitcoin magazines and stuff. I don't know enough about Charles Hoskinson's successes before IOHK or Cardano. I don't know their trend, but I do know the trend of the people that I talk with regularly that are inside of Hex. Kinetics, RG3, Hexologists. I mean, there's a lot of people that are very successful with their own businesses. And I like it. I like the ecosystem. I like the narrative. I like the finished part of the code as far as it being complete. I like those narratives. If I'm going to talk about ROI, you and I hear things like 1,000x, 10,000x, and it almost comes normalized to 50x or 100x on something. It's, of course that 100x. But real estate people don't think that. Stock and bond people don't think that. They think I fucking killed it because I made 30% on my money. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's so funny how, like, if you're not talking 10x and above, I mean, it's boring. Nobody's interested in crypto. But on the legacy side, 10x is the best investment of your lifetime. I mean, those big short guys, didn't they end up making like a 3x, a 10x or something?
Yeah. And they made a whole movie about it because
about their 3 or 10x.
And I'm not saying that that's wrong. That's how majority of the world operates. The majority of the world doesn't have a bumper crop. We have a bumper crop. Like when you plant a bunch of seeds, you calve a bunch of cattle. A bumper crop is when you have a lot more than you expected.
I love your farming analogies.
Yeah. So in crypto, we have it's raining on us money. right? Or multiples, right? It rains on us. Like, holy crap, I can't, I'm it's so hard during a bull season. You can't throw a dart and lose money during a bull. It's very hard, right? Because even the shit ones are still going to have a ROI depending on your game, how quick you're in and quick out, and all that kind of trading frenzies, feeding frenzies.
Absolutely. And again, just to hover on the hex thing as well, like the thing I like about Richard, or at least one of the many things, is that when in his projects and products exists the explicit design intention for price appreciation, which is missing from so much of other cryptos out there. Like, look, I've invested in some what I thought were interesting ideas, like Armor Finance. You buy insurance on your crypto. Interesting idea, whatever. Never took off. Terrible tokenomics. There was another one, some exchange on Solana that was starting to get usage. Okay, I'm like, oh, Solana's hyped up. There's a lot of DeFi, a lot of developers. Why not, invest in a very popular swap? Never took off. Terrible tokenomics, right? So much of crypto outside of the Richard ecosystem. There might be interesting ideas that you can maybe argue are worth speculating on, but there isn't the explicit design intention for price appreciation which is considered in Richard Heart projects and products, which is extremely important to incorporate. There's got to be some tokenomics, some utility, some deflationary mechanism, some reason to hold the coin, which again I think is so important to hover on, because there exists within this niche the ability for empowerment. And that's what I'm hoping I'm able to bring to the table. Like there's no fun getting rich by yourself. Like I went all in on PulseChain and PulseX as a normal person, and I think in the near future I should be able to be set up to be financially free. Hopefully, the rest of my life. We never know, but it would be real nice if you can help many other people along the way. And I'm sure you feel the same way. And it's great to have found that one thing that is of high quality, that has that likelihood to do that. It's so rare to find that.
Well, peace of mind. I say emotional equity, like your EQ, or is that what it stands for? I think so. But your emotional equity. So, like at the end of the day, do you feel drained? Do you feel sad? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel lost? Do you feel like you squandered your resources or your time or your life, right? At the end of the day, like how do you feel, right? And so this thing can be addictive, this gambling, trading kind of world, this crypto game that we all play. And I like the long bet. I personally like the long bet. That's why I'm in Hex. That's why I advocate Hex. That's why the people I speak with that get into Hex, that it resonates with them too, right? The same kind of narratives. So, yeah, I think that the product is amazing. I think the community is amazing. I think that I don't have to be a maniac running down the street saying, the sky is falling if you don't get into Hex. I think it has a long story to tell, and I'm fine with that.
So if we had to look 5 years down the road, I want financial advice. What is the price of what is the price of Hex? I want an official price prediction. You put your name next to that you stand by.
Yeah. So have you heard K4K's buy and burn mechanisms? And he talks about $700,000 worth of buying pressure every day because of $1 billion worth of trade volume. Have you heard that number before?
Not that number specifically.
Yeah, so he's referencing Pancake Swap and Uniswap and different DEXs as far as their daily trading volume, and then the fee schedule, and then the fact that there's a buy and there's a burn mechanism. And the way that he comes up with that is, he goes through all that math, and then he says it's $700,000 worth of daily buying pressure at $1 billion worth of trading volume per day, right? Those people that believe in, and that's to buy the token of PulseX. That can be I think it can be in the future directed to other things based on the DAO. The DAO will have voting powers and such. And so you can choose, the people that have the biggest weight in that system will be able to choose which pair I think would get that incentive or that PRT or that incentive or something. I may be all confused. But when you're asking the Hex price, what I said earlier, I think will happen. Me personally, I know it will happen because that's what I plan to do. My yield from PulseX and my yield from Pulse Chain staking systems, whatever I'm going to do with those, will go to buy Hex. I think that's because that's a product that a lot of hexagons got behind 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago, 2 months ago. The ones that buy into Hex with that narrative in their head, I think that they're going to think the same sort of thing. Like, you want to pull yield off to pay for your house, to pay for your car. Sure, pay for your house, pay for your car, pay for your kids' education. Make sure you have a nice dinner, however often you want to go to nice dinners. But sooner or later, the whales, the sharks, the dolphins, the turtles, everybody in the system will have bought the stuff that they want to buy. Like Richard even said it today. He's got $5 million worth of watches. He says, I've run out of stuff to buy. Like, I don't know what to buy anymore. That's why he pays $3,000 for a stupid t-shirt, right? Because you run out of things to do with your time, your resources, your ability, your talent. You run out, right? And I think that for me, I think that Hex will grow because maybe it's a shrinking pool instead of a growing pool of participants that own Hex. It's the same with classic Corvettes and Ferraris and Porsches and Duesenbergs, right? There's a smaller and smaller pool that own those very, very expensive cars. And some of them are 30 million, 40 million, $50 million. There's a smaller pool maybe of people that own super mansions, right? And all I'm getting at is Hex's price can perform far more than you think it can, even without it being in every single person in America or the world's wallet. Like, everyone doesn't have to own Hex for the price to go through the fucking roof. It just doesn't, right? Even Richard's wristwatches he was talking about today. I remember when he was saying they were 250,000, but the market has moved, and the market has moved because of superinflation and hyperinflation. So those luxury products like that rainbow Rolex is now $1 million. You can't buy it for less, right? And it was like 250 when he bought it. You can't buy that diamond for $3.6 million now. He got an offer for $8 million, I think.
Right.
So, I think it's the same thing. I think as we can concentrate and we buy the things that we care about, whether we're middle class or upper middle class or rich or not so rich. I mean, we just buy the things we care about anyway. So I care about Hex, and I think a lot of other hexagons care about Hex, even if they're in Pulse and Pulse Chain. Right,
of course. And so let me ask you this: Daytonas, I think they're vastly overrated. What do you think about the Daytonas? I think it's the most overrated watch in the world. Submariners are where they're at. Daytonas, they're so overhyped. They're not that good looking. What's your opinion?
Did Steve McQueen own a Submariner? Let me see.
I'm not sure, but they just look so much better.
Because he had I think his Rolex. I think he's the one that made. It's either him or it's who's the other movie star that had I think it was Steve McQueen that made the Rolex Daytona so popular. Maybe he had a Submariner though.
It's just, my thing is, there's $1,000 watches with that same look, the tri-circles that pull off the look better than the $50,000 Daytona. Like a $10,000 date just looks better than a $50,000 Daytona.
Hey man, I got to take Ballet Brand to dinner. This guy keeps throwing cash at you. I gotta sponsor his next time.
I gotta take this guy to dinner.
This guy, Ballet man.
Thank you so much, Ballet Brand, with the $66.33 donation. Thank you so much. Amazing points, funding Jim. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, but it's okay. But where do you fall on the Daytona?
Question? On the luxury stuff, I like cars more than I like wristwatches. I mean, it's easier to travel with the wristwatch, I guess. But I'm really more like I'm a late 50s, early 60s car guy. That's what I like. So if I'm gonna splurge $100,000 on something or more, it's gonna be on a car. I like cars.
I got you. Oh, well, okay. So where do you fall on this, Ferrari versus Lamborghini? Because I'm debating this myself.
Lamborghini, man. I mean, Lamborghini is nice. Yeah, the performance has been really, like, I've been in a bunch of Lamborghinis recently. I like the Ferrari for the look. There is this one that has like a hatchback to it that looks really cool. I met what is it? I gotta see what it is. Hang on a second.
Because my thing is, the Ferrari outside gorgeous, but I feel like the Lamborghini interior, which is where you're gonna be spending your time, is superior.
Yeah, so I went to this event in I was in, where was I at? Naples. I guess it was in Naples, Florida. And I saw this car. I'm going to send you the link. You can put it up on the Instagram.
Sure.
Hang on a minute. It's got all right,
this is a hilarious conversation for me to be having while I'm like sacking. Like I sacked all my net worth for these different projects. But who knows? If a couple years on the road, it might be more realistic for me to be talking about this stuff.
So in the private chat, you can click on that and share it if you want to. It's the Instagram for my friend. He's public and popular.
On the StreamYards or on Twitter?
On StreamYard private chat, there's a little button to the right that says private chat where it comments. And there's private chat link, the third one down. So I'm going to tell you about this guy.
Right. Yeah.
Scroll like about 3 rows down. You'll see him with gold all over and champagne and a Ferrari in the background. Right? You see that picture?
Do you want me to share this?
Yeah, you can share it.
Okay.
He's public. He's public.
Right. Well, I'm not logged in right now, but I suppose we can see this. Here, give me a second.
Oh, I can share it if you want me to share. Let me see if I can share it.
I have it pulled up. I'm just not logged in.
I don't know. Let me. All right.
But yeah, what is that? Is that the Roma?
Yeah. So anyway, so you see this picture, and he's got the gold, and he's got the champagne and everything. All right. So
yeah.
I took so Nardo for the win is a Hex guy, and Big Pep, he's a Hex guy, and we were in Florida, and I took him to this event to meet Robert Kiyosaki and George Gammon and all those people, right? And so they were going to go, Kiyosaki and all them, they were going to go on an airboat. And I didn't want to go on an airboat because I was going to go on an airboat in a few days at a Marine Corps thing. So I didn't want to go to that. So instead, I said I wanted to go to the Ferrari. There was a big Ferrari thing. It was like 10,000 people and probably 500 cars. It was like $2 to $4 million McLarens and fancy cars. Anyways, so I was there. You can scroll down further. Maybe you can keep scrolling down. I won't show you more. That's fine. But anyway, so this guy was at the show. I walked past all these cars, didn't talk to anybody other than Nardo and Big Pep. And finally, I saw this car. It was a Ferrari that had a hatch to it, hatch in the rear. Had a lot of seat space for the back seat occupants. He had it set up with like champagne inside of chilled champagne and stuff like that, and kind of this little thing. Anyways, I started talking to this guy. I was like, "Oh man, I haven't seen this Ferrari before. It's amazing. I haven't seen this style and so forth." Right? And ended up talking with him, and I think I don't think very much of his. I mean, like the conversation was great, the car was great, but I didn't think this person was as well known. Anyway, so I walk away from it. We go through the rest of our day. We come back later the next day. I think I'll check my Instagram and I look at like this guy that I made contact with. I traded Instagrams with him. And I found out that he's followed by Gary Vaynerchuk. And I was like, why is Gary Vaynerchuk following this guy? Like, what's going on? Because Gary V has like 10 million followers and he only follows like a couple thousand or something, right?
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, why is he following this guy? And then later I find out that this guy has like vineyards. He owns like vineyards. He owns a champagne company. He's the president of the Ferrari Club of America. Like he's a very well-known guy, right?
Wow.
And then I start clicking through his Instagram and it's like giving me so many Richard Hart vibes. Like so many, man. He's got like it's all the big bling, it's all the big attitude. Yeah. His personality is like, over the top, very, very cool guy.
Yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious, man. That's awesome. And Ferraris too, they're super exclusive.
That's the only what I was gonna get at was that's the only Ferrari I would get is the one that he has.
Is the Roma really?
No, it's not a Roma. It's not a Roma. It's something that's a hatchback. It's a hatchback something. Let me look it up.
Oh, okay.
On his page.
Man, you got to go with a Pista, man. The F8. That one's just gorgeous. They're coming out with a hybrid now. That is disgusting. You need to lobby everyone not to buy that thing. We cannot allow these manufacturers to start selling people these hybrids. It just can't happen. You got to tell Richard. You got to form a group, a lobbying effort to make sure this has not become a trend.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna find this picture of this car. It's on his thing, I'm sure.
Like, come on, I got the F8 Tributa here. Like, this is the best looking Ferrari. This one and the LaFerrari are gorgeous, but the interiors they're so simple. And I hear like the plastics are sometimes cheap. I love how I'm complaining about this $500,000 car that I'll probably, who knows, won't. It's I definitely could not afford this thing. So
that's crazy.
Oh man.
So what are your long-term goals? Like, are you building your channel out mostly? Are you doing podcasts next? I mean, what is your like growth of your brand? What do you want to do with your brand?
Well, look, man, you know, we don't have plans of going anywhere. You know, our goal is to, you know, go from being extremely normal people. I've had very normal jobs, used to work construction, used to be a government employee, among other things. And I want to see if it's possible to go from being normal to being financially free. And in my opinion, you know, financially free is having enough productive assets that appreciate in value that can pay me a cash flow where I'm able to live off simply a portion of the cash flow and have enough extra where I can constantly reinvest. And so while, you know, I think it's funny to talk about Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Rolexes, ultimately I would like to be financially free, hopefully for the rest of my life, and be nicely set up. And so, you know, once we reach 1 million, I plan on probably buying myself a Rolex. I'll indulge in that one, you know, not fiscally responsible thing. I'll bring it on the channel. A Datejust black Rolex Submariner. I'll get that. But no, aside from that, long term, I mean, you know, $1 million to the moon sounds great, but you know, $1 billion to the moon sounds even better. There's
constantly
no
resetting goals. Constantly resetting goals.
You know what? I really appreciate Whales Only for coming on the channel and for discussing something that I'm going to tell him to bring up much more often, which is The Richest Man in Babylon. Have you heard of that book?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. Yeah,
it's such a good book because it really demonstrates how the laws that kind of, you know, govern the acquisition and maintenance of wealth have been known forever. And while it's difficult to get there to varying degrees based on what your starting point is, it's ultimately all about just accumulating productive assets that hopefully appreciate in value and pay off a cash and pay out a cash flow. And if you just do that a finite amount of times, you know, if you're poor, if you're working class, it might be very hard, but it is theoretically possible to get there and to be financially free. But you don't have to stop at just financially free. You can continue that process. And the more you continue that process, the more opportunity you have. And look, while it's nice to talk about Ferraris and all this stuff, ultimately I see money as a means to an end, not an end in and of itself. And the more money you have, the more potential you have, and the more doors are open. So while I would like to, you know, maybe talk about super long-term plans, I don't think it's helpful until they're more realistic. And so I think for now, talking about making, you know, that first million and getting there is definitely the focus.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I do have a different stream I need to be on. Do you need to cut it a little bit?
A little bit early, an hour and 50 minutes in.
We're trying just a smidge.
Just a smidge.
I was supposed to do something. Yeah.
No, dude, my God, you're so generous with your time. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on, man. You know, you've been a very positive force in the space for a long time, and I really think a lot of people can learn from your perspective. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you.
Oh man, it's great. I look forward to your content every time that you put one out. I'm hit the bell, hit the like, subscribe. You're one of the top people that definitely pay attention to when your stuff comes out brand new.
Thank you, man. I genuinely very much appreciate that. And shout out to Valiant Brand as well. That guy's awesome. So yeah, man, if you have any final words, if not, we can wrap her up here.
No, I just follow me on Twitter. I don't make as much YouTube content as I was before. I'm on Instagram also. Anything that's funding Jim, you're going to find me. If you do have someone that is high net worth or they are high network, they have a big network, you want to include me, then you can include me. Or if I need to, then I'll fly out to them and talk to them about cryptocurrency specifically. Most of the time, it's been people that are in the financial space or real estate space that my analogies relate to the best, and those are the ones that I'm most easy to onboard and actually commit to Hex. But if you have someone inside your network or someone that you know that you're not bold enough or brave enough, or you don't feel like you can explain well enough, just link them. Just be the good bridge. And if it's not me, then somebody else can do that. I think that the community will 100x when we 10x the size of the community. Like the community size matters as far as the value of the coin. So.
Yeah. So yeah, it's early days. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time. Everyone, like and subscribe. Go follow Funding Gym. I will leave a link down in the description below. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We'll wrap it up here.
Sounds great, man. Talk to you later.